Smell that? That's the autumn wind, baby. Ushering in my favorite time of year since, well, before I can even remember. Seeing the leaves change, getting to wear my favorite hoodie again, and watching my favorite sport with my season ticket holding daddy, also known as my dad. Yes, football and fall were the two biggest staples of my formative years. Watching my Pittsburgh Steelers win 4 Super Bowls made the sport as much a part of my family's DNA as our crippling anxiety or our inability to grow facial hair. Who am I kidding? F***ing hate football now, and most other sports too. And it's in large part due to what EA has done with football and sports video games in general. My name is Neil Bauer. I'm the buyer for the ex-video game chain Game Crazy, and I may or may not had something to do with killing the Sega Dreamcast. Bastard! And I'm about to go along on why I hate both EA and the NFL for what they did to my favorite sport and to my heart. Let's go deep. So I'm going to talk about a lot in this video, and from the comments I received in my last one, I know a lot of you want me to get to the point, and that's what I'm going to do right out of the gate. I'm going to get to the point, and then I'm going to backfill it. So if you want to get to the ending, then you just have to listen to 3 minutes. Otherwise, you can click this link, and you'll get right to what I'm trying to say. Now, most of you will likely know of the hand-painted custom kicks program that we were running for the last 3 years. Anybody? Nobody? Seriously? For anyone that has no idea, we had Major League players wearing hand-painted cleats during a game. After the game, the cleats were signed by the player and then sold over at the MLB auction site. The money went to support More Than Baseball's mission of helping to pay minor leaguers because when the COVID happened, Major League Baseball said, well, I guess we don't have to pay our minor league players. So that stunk. So my work with More Than Baseball caught the attention of some folks at the National Sports Forum, and they had me come in to do a talk to their leadership and start to close this generational gap that's widening for all major sports. So what's with this generational gap? Well, in the 1950s, baseball was massive. Huge. It was massively huge. It was big, huge, astronomically large, becoming America's pastime up there with smoking 2 packs a day, rocking around the clock, and sneaking war criminals into the country to build them moon rockets. Laughing at my own jokes. Oh! Anyways, baseball was creating heroes, role models, and stories that inspired people to drop buckets of ice water on their heads to this day. However, after men landed on the moon and we moved into the groovy era of the 70s, baseball struggled to keep interest. Average game attendance went from 13,000 in 1975 to 10,000 in 76 to 5,000 in 1977, and by 1979, teams would be drawing just over 1,000 paying customers.
Oh, that's gotta
What
hurt.
saved baseball back then was that it was accessible. While major stadiums were struggling to fill seats, Little League Baseball was booming. In 1978, youth participation in baseball more than doubled its numbers over 1 decade. That was all going on until the whole privatization of American youth sports commodified the play of millions of children into a $19.2 billion business, which weakened volunteer-based programs that promised affordable sports for all children. Can we give it up for late stage capitalism? Really? Are we going to keep that? Guess so. After peaking in the mid-90s, the interest in youth baseball started to wane as the sport stopped being about teamwork. It became more about getting your head out of your ass, Bauer. What's play B? What's play B, Bauer? What is it? Still traumatized. Thought I was over it. Also around this time, there was something else happening that was pulling kids in a different direction, but I'm not exactly sure what that might have been. It'll come to me. As team fan bases started to fracture and youth baseball started to become cost prohibitive, knowledge of what baseball is began to slip out of the mouths and minds of children.
But I don't know how to play baseball.
Fast forward to this season, when your 2-decade too late answer is to make the sport less boring, you really should be working with folks outside your organization to find alternate solutions. Which is how I got invited to the National Sports Forum. I was brought in to talk about how legacy sports can attract younger folks to stadiums. As a parent myself, I tried to get my kids into games by introducing them to Journey, Flower, and Flow, which they didn't care about. They wanted to show me Five Nights at Freddy's and Fortnite, and so I took an interest in those, because that's what parents should do, not shove sports down their throat. Anyways, that's not what this video is about. So my suggestion was to do what the Anaheim Ducks and Nintendo were doing, where attendees would receive something like a static one-time use QR code that could be redeemed for a digital asset. The dad may not care about Animal Crossing, and the kid likely doesn't care about baseball, but this digital item helps bridge that gap between these two worlds. That's what builds the bonds, like of understanding and love, and actually giving a shit about your kids. Anyways. So my talk was in a room of around 500 people. At the end of my talk, only 5 people asked questions, and of those 5, only 2 asked for expanded information on how their organizations could start a program like this. That's less than 0.5%.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have come at all. Jerk off!
So let's fast forward to September, where I'm invited by an old friend to attend a Nintendo Live in Seattle. For those who don't know, it's an all-ages celebration of Nintendo games, characters, and all things Nintendo. It was there when I realized that things were dire not only for baseball, but for all sports looking to fill that generational divide. At Nintendo Live, you would see grandparents, parents, kids, and the healthiest assortment of diversity in people you could imagine. Everyone smiling ear to ear, whether they were looking at Nintendo classics, watching a live performance of classic music, or just sharing memories of their personal experience with games they love. It was there I saw how Nintendo had effortlessly been able to do what professional sports can't even begin to comprehend. Sharing the love of something across ages, genders, demographics, and perverted perversions, if you're a Bayonetta fan like myself. Ooh, video games are a powerful tool for engagement, for education, and understanding of complex concepts like rules and mechanics, which can help with the adoption of things like sports. So here's where I start talking about Madden's exclusivity deal with the NFL, how it came to be, and why EA continues to fail, and why it's ultimately hurting the future of the NFL. When I was born, Pittsburgh was in a funk. Not because I was born. When you look at me, I know you're like, wow, that guy's like 22, 23, tops. Actually, I was born in the 1970s, in the vacuum between MIT's Space War and Nolan Bushnell's bar tours with Pong. Unbeknownst to a toddler like myself, Pittsburgh was going through a crippling depression at the time.
By the 1960s, the economic dominance of the United States was being challenged by the rebuilt European and Japanese economies.
Everything is hurting. Every business around here is hurting in Homestead. Everything.
The closing of the Youngstown plants was followed by another wave of closings in the Pittsburgh area.
You see, Pittsburgh's main exports post-World War II were coal, steel, and the letter H at the end of Berg. In the 1940s, the need for coal and steel exploded, not literally exploded. I mean, it was exploding because it's coal. Coal dust is explosive. But let's just say everybody wanted steel for something, whether it would be bombs, cars, heating homes, or even making a face on your soot gray snowman. The demand was so high for these that the sky in Pittsburgh would often be black at 9 a.m. from people producing and using these profitable assets. Around 1960, the city started to clean up its act. And if you think it's because the city fathers were like, oh my God, everybody's dying of black lung and our population has been cut in half over the last 10 years. No. It was because there was a 116-day steel strike that put an end to the blast furnaces going 24/7. And much like what we saw with COVID shutdowns, the environment finally had a chance to catch its breath and recover. Children were finally able to look upwards and see that the sky was not made of black or gray, but of blue, like a robin's egg or a powder blue Taurus. And their lungs were filling not with sulfur and ash, but just from cigarette smoke from your parents smoking in the car with the windows rolled up. I mean, it was a great time to be alive, even if you did only live to be in your 30s. So due to people's selfish desire for things such as sustainable environment and healthy children, 29 steel mills went bankrupt. Thanks a lot, assholes. One of the things that helped Pittsburgh pull itself up from its three-rivered steel-toed bootstraps was Art Rooney's own Pittsburgh Steelers. For my entire youth, the city hung its hopes on the black and gold every Sunday, and a win would open the sails of hope for our adrift city. As a baby, I had no idea how to football, but I would still consistently feed off the energies given off by the other family members huddled around the television. It wasn't until my family got a hookup with HBO that my love affair for the sport would officially begin. Every week, the events of the past weekend would be splayed out in a magnificent dramatic spectacle known as Inside the NFL. It made football more akin to theater, which, as a kid who did this a lot, had me running to the school library to learn everything I could about the black and gold. I absorbed everything from Art Rooney's gambling habits to Rocky Flyer's foot being blown up to Jack Lambert devouring his son, which I think he did. I think that happened. I mean, we had a lot of weird role models back then. The Steelers helped to keep my fires of football stoked by winning 4 Super Bowls in just 6 years, and it basically kept the spirit of Pittsburgh alive. But, geez, not the Pittsburgh spirit. That's a soccer team. That team didn't do anything. But it kept the Pittsburgh spirit alive long enough to pivot away from steel into new business sectors like business and medical fields and education. And just in time, too, because in 1979, the sports scene in Pittsburgh kind of tanked for a while. After becoming the city of champions, it was pretty rough. So when your team or your favorite player or you yourself suck at a sport, one of the best things to do is escape into fantasy. From photoelectric football to board games to little plastic helmets and paper triangles, there were very limited options available for taking your love of football off the gridiron. All of that ended with the finger-pinching trackball goodness of Atari football in 1978, a game that is still as much fun to play today as it was almost 50 years ago. 50 years ago? It's a long time ago. Long time ago. When we got our Atari 2600 in 1980, one of the very first games I begged my parents to get was Atari football. It's all I wanted for Christmas. I mean, look at this box. Freaking beautiful. You even have a moon transforming into Jupiter for some reason. What the hell's going on there? I couldn't wait to play this game with my dad on Christmas Day, and we popped it in. Oh, dear God. Oh, dear Lord. I can't even begin to imagine how much my dad spent on this back then. Woo! Well, no matter how it looked, it was the first console football game that hit most living rooms. And I'm not talking about the Magnavox Pong people were going to bring that up, or Bally or whatever. No, it was the cartridge-based whatever. It's not electronic quarterback, which I have. Hang on a sec. Still got it. I'm not talking about handhelds. The release of Atari Football sparked a digital gridiron competition that would last for decades. From Mattel's M Network to Coleco's Super Action Sports, American football games on American consoles would begin to take shape in America. Every new game would add something to the mix, with dramatic cutaways, action cameras, or just running players over with ambulances. Every game moving closer to true simulation football and blurring the lines between reality and fiction. Okay, so due to the ruling of the courts, I am legally bound to talk about Trip Hawkins in every video, so let's get this out of the way. In 1984, Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins was on a quest to bring realistic sport games to computers. On the heels of Dr. J and Larry Bird Go One-on-One, which was released in '83, Hawkins stormed onto the court and served up another pitch to see if they could hit another homer out of the park. With football.
As a young boy, I dreamed of being a baseball.
Tripp went with signing a relatively unknown Neil's dad impersonator, which will make sense to like 3 people. But also, luckily for EA, turned out to be the previous coach of the Oakland Raiders and NFL commentator for CBS. His name was Johnny McMadden-Skivich III. I think. Oh, otherwise known as John Madden. Mr. Madden's only caveat is that the game had to be 11 on 11, which, seeing the technology at the time, would require 4 years of development to achieve. Again, and fortunately for EA, the industry crashed around this time, which gave their devs a lot of time to dedicate to this task. By the time the game was ready for prime time on the Sega Genesis and Super NES, the industry had bounced back and put a lot more competition into the marketplace. There was not a shortage of football games available during the 16-bit era. The one from Electronic Arts emerged as the crowd favorite and improved on itself year after year. And you want to know why? And that's why I'm here, isn't it? Because coding an 11-on-11 football game at the time was near impossible, EA contracted with Bethesda Softworks. What? To help finish the game. Yeah, absolutely. Bethesda had their own football game at the time called Gridiron. And when they started working on Madden, EA kinda failed to publish new versions of the Gridiron game, which resulted in a lawsuit. For some reason, I can't imagine why EA wouldn't want 2 football games on the market. Nice shop. It'd be a real shame if something were to happen to it. It's actually different. It's like hiring somebody into your shop and then beating them up. In early 1990, EA hired Park Place Productions to develop Madden for the Sega Genesis, who had developed ABC's Monday Night Football in 1989. You're seeing a pattern here? They're bringing in football game developers so they can't work on their own games. And in 1991, they brought DC True Limited, which I could find zero information on, in to develop Madden's second game. And in 1992, they brought in Blue Sky Productions to develop Madden 93. The game would be handed around for the first 5 years of its existence, while EA focused on more important business matters such as circumventing Sega's copy protection code so the company wouldn't have to pay the $8 to $10 license fee per cartridge.
Sega began to hear that we were having some of these conversations. Why would anybody get a license from Sega and overpay for it and be agreeing to a bunch of limitations when they could get a much more open, free license from me that would be actually, in fact, a lot cheaper?
You see, EA had a bunch of different developers creating the first iterations of Madden Football, each iteration improving on the next. Then,
Eddie, sports, it's in the game.
In 1995, it all falls apart. EA is now making millions thanks to the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo consoles. Tripp realizes that the company is paying Nintendo and Sega tremendous amounts of money just to have games on their platforms. So, in 1991, while still at Electronic Arts, he starts up a new company to create a set-top box that would put more money into the publisher's hands. His biggest mistake was while he was out developing this new console, he stepped down as the boss of EA and put his head of sales in charge of the company, who would wind up removing Tripp from the board of his own company, and then put a dagger into the heart of this new console. You and me both, buddy. You and me both. Hello, what are you talking about? Come here, say hi. Oh, it's time for you guys to eat. I gotta feed the dogs. I'll be right back. Nintendo and Sony built their machines to handle 3D engines, as that was the next frontier of gaming. However, because EA's leadership had changed, the company failed to understand how big a step ahead these new consoles were, and couldn't find a developer capable of producing a game in time for the console's launch in the US. With the visionary of the company gone, EA needed to find a developer that could handle Madden's transition to 3D very quickly in order to meet the deadline. Did they learn nothing from Atari and Pac-Man? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is probably why EA didn't want to develop for the 3DO, as it gave them a year to delay building a competent 3D engine. Anyways, nobody talks about this, but Madden missed putting a 3D game out in '95 on the 3DO and again missed the launch of the PlayStation in 1996. I mean, there's a Madden 96, all right, but it was locked to the Genesis and Super NES, and it was the 2D engine from before. At the time, the top 2 best-selling and best-received Madden games to date were Madden 94 and Madden 95, which had boasted a brand new game engine and were the first to be officially endorsed by the NFL. These were the first games that actually ran on the SNES well, because prior to this, the SNES versions were definitely the inferior versions. When EA couldn't get a game together with a Sony PlayStation in 1996, they went on to blame Visual Concepts for being both young and inexperienced. Oh, this makes me so angry. This developer that just designed the engine for the last 2 top-selling, highly received Madden games was now being called young and inexperienced by a company that just fired its founder and failed to deliver 2 years of a product. Oh, and EA didn't deliver a next-gen Madden until 1997, and by their own admission, we barely got that one done.
Brother, this guy
Because of their delay in getting a next-generation football title out, can you guess what happened next? Going from 2D to 3D was a nightmare for Electronic Arts, and the new Madden developers at Tiberon Studios. Let's hope they got rid of those developers to make a better game. Hello? You're saying they haven't changed developers in 25 years? You're saying that Electronic Arts wound up acquiring Tiberon in 1998? On my f***ing birthday? Jesus Christ. And you're saying it's the same developer behind such games as Superman Returns? GoldenEye? Oh, GoldenEye Rogue Agent. That makes sense. And Henry Hatsworth and the Puzzling Adventure? Actually, that was pretty good. Okay, I'm recording this for a video, so I gotta let you go. I love you too. The transition to the 32-bit era saw new games that were blowing Madden out of the water. Games like Sony's new NFL Game Day came out swinging with high marks, while Madden 97, the top-selling football game of the time, I can't even find a review for it. The next season brought with it NFL Game Day 98, which is considered the greatest football game ever played at that time. But Madden 98 was still a buggy, clunky train wreck. This is now 4 years after their young and experienced developers failed to deliver a product for them in 8 months. I wonder what that young and experienced developer was working on now. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, apparently they were picked up by Sega and started working on several next-generation sports titles. That's so weird. And all of them were rated pretty high at the time, so that's even weirder. That's crazy. You see, Tiberon was always trying to gain ground against the young and inexperienced Visual Concepts team. Visual Concepts was creating new innovations on top of their existing engine, while EA was holding their framework together and having to swap out modes and assets to make the yearly cut. With the Dreamcast in their rearview mirror, and after being acquired by Take-Two Interactive just after E3, they wanted to establish their dominance with Sega Sports. Sega was ready to go toe-to-toe with Madden and put their flagship football title in as many hands as possible. This is why Sega did the unthinkable. They told us that they planned on releasing their latest football game 3 weeks early, and they were dropping the price to $19.99 to get the game in as many players' hands as possible. At that point, we doubled our order. We replenished our stores with product twice before Madden even hit the store shelves on August 9th. People were buying both copies of NFL 2K5 and Madden, and eventually returning Madden to the store and keeping the superior $20 product. It only took EA about 3 months to hammer out a deal with the NFL that would take all other video games off the market, forever and ever and always. And any apologist like this guy can get fucked.
No, EA just bought it out again.
Yeah, damn, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
I kind of respect that.
But you know what? It's fair.
It's a power play.
Just
really
walked in and
like,
slammed it on the table. You know what I mean?
It's not baller to take away choice, you fuck. It's a monopoly, and it's fucking criminal. It was in 2004 that Sega Sports decided to turn up the heat once and for all on EA and effectively show everyone how great a game 2K was. Releasing their next game almost 1 month before Madden, dropping the price to $19.99, it should have been the end for Madden and the team at Tiberon. But unfortunately, business is gonna business, and it's been downhill for us gamers ever since.
It's a
I
power
kind of
play.
respect that.
Oh, you mad? You mad? In the first section of this video, I went into why I was brought in to help Major League Baseball, to close that generational divide. But it's not just baseball. The NFL has seen better days in terms of popularity, but everything from the Olympics to esports are on the decline. For football, their problems mirror that of the MLB. But one of the main reasons for the decline as of late is, wait for it, a late-stage capitalism! Before, the NFL appeared on your television on Sunday, or on Monday, or on Thursday. If the television was on between August 1st and January 31st, there was a 20% chance football might be on. CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox were all OVA, or over-the-air signals, that would be picked up in living rooms around the country. You might even have a team you cared about being broadcast on Sunday. But with the advent of NFL Sunday Ticket and the rise of streaming platforms, there's a great chance you won't see any football on traditional television, as it will be on Amazon Prime, Paramount Plus, ESPN, Peacock, or any number of channels that you don't own or don't want to subscribe to. Difficulties watching aside, player safety concerns, a higher percentage of domestic violence, and accusations of scripting more than almost any other sport outside the WWE, the rise of questionable calls by refs, even on plays when they're allowed to review the play in slow motion to make the right call, has been on the rise. NFL Game Day 98 has a better replay system than the modern day NFL. It's ridiculous. And as a result, ratings decline and fans have become increasingly frustrated with the league. Neurotransmissions has a great video about this and why she, a Wisconsinite, actively stopped watching football. Once you see the relationship with concussions, dementia, and CTEs, it's pretty hard to see hits like these that will effectively end someone's career or turn a loving father into an unfamiliar psychopath. I'm from Pittsburgh, and what happened to Mike Webster was the start of my disgust for the NFL wanting to bury the story about the dangers of repeated concussions. Terry Bradshaw, 4-time Super Bowl winning QB for the Steelers, put it better than I ever could.
Instead of being proactive, they are reactive. Behind closed doors, they'll tell us, we're going to take care of that. And you know what? They don't. Mike Webster, my former center, passed away. A lot of head problems. A lot of living in a car, living under a bridge. NFL take care of him? No, not at all.
As more information comes out around the long-term effects of head injuries, fewer kids are starting to play football in grade school, which reduces the pool of peers to play with. In kids 6 to 14, football has seen a participation drop from 3 million in 2010 to about 2 million in 2018. That's a 30% drop. So as older fans die off, they are being replaced by younger fans. There's more, but here's where Madden comes in to make it even worse.
Sucks.
John Madden, the man. His legacy is forever tainted because of EA's unwillingness to improve their product. They don't care if they drag this man's name through the mud, as EA showed exactly how much they care about the young and experienced developers that built their 2 best sports titles. EA would reanimate John Madden's corpse if they thought they could make another 50 cents off of it.
EA, why do you tarnish the Madden name?
John Madden is a legend of the sport, and his name is associated forevermore with this.
I've been watching you.
To you 2 things. It feels like the last 8 Maddens, and number 2, there are still random, horrible glitches that cannot be prevented. You like an incomplete pass that doesn't get like stopped, and then it's somehow a fumble.
What is going on? What is actually going on? This is the weirdest glitch I've ever seen. What is there? There's 6 of them.
The biggest glitch in Madden history. It's called the pump fake glitch, and this makes the entire defense ignore you unless they're a pass rusher. So everybody in coverage will literally not know that you're running down the field. You can literally celebrate in their face, and they don't even know that you're there.
Man, I had to record this one as a clip. Somebody come look at this. This shit is crazy.
They tried to drop me with a cake, but I know I had to state it. I was singing like, ooh, boy, I know the, oh my God, I do. If it hurt, then I talk it, then I say, Quan, were you at the top of log? Oh!
Yo. No.
With a nigga get it poppin', and now she want a free drink till they, oh my God!
Now on to the killer. With EA's push to microtransactions and gambling mechanics, that's going to be their focus going forward. The current game engine will continue to deteriorate from its paraffin wax and piano wire state, while sycophantic Maddenites will get sucked dry of all their cash. Kids can't gamble, so who's going to fill the void once this set of players goes away? Who's going to know the rules of the game? What heroes will exist to grace the cover and then immediately get a career-ending injury 2 games into their rookie season? The NFL is doing everything it can to try and generate interest outside of its core demographic, which is likely if you say, oh my God, is that Taylor Swift? Oh my God, it's Taylor Swift. Cut away, Taylor Swift. It's Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Also, trying to appeal to kids in this way only works if they were watching the game in the first place. The NFL thinks by having games in the UK, they can make up for the massive chasm of Patriot fans leaving the fan base now that Tom Brady isn't there and that they suck. The NFL is using a playbook from 1995 in order to solve for ideas in 2025. And the one place where they might have been able to keep an audience interested is in building a product where fans could make the Browns a team that doesn't fall apart in either the first or last games of the season. A world where the Broncos still have John Elway and the Steelers never had an alleged two-time rapist as their quarterback, or a second-string quarterback that was in jail for murdering dogs. Role models! If the NFL wanted to remain relevant and be showered with new ideas, it would need passionate people like Ryan Moody, aka Shutdown Safety, or Soft Drink TV, or the people at Secret Base, or Rate Sports, and Lost Soul, who has continued to mod 2K5 with new rosters, textures, players, and other enhancements. These are the people that will save the interest in football, and not the resurrected holograph of a man who accidentally sold his soul to the devil 40 years ago. The NFL needs video game football more than gamers need another game in their backlog. I am happy to play NFL 2K5 or 2K24 as long as possible until that option gets taken away. When it does, and EA is still the only option on the table, I'll have to be happy passing on my love of the 8 bajillion other video games I love instead of trying to shoehorn them into a sport that hasn't evolved or protected its players since the day I was born.
The things we do to one another, okay? Hell, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just tired and confused right now. That's why I say it. I can't really, I can't say it the way I want to say it. I could answer this real easy at other times, but right now I'm just tired.
Well, that ended much harsher than I expected it to, but I wanted to thank you all for the feedback on my last video. That was awesome. I appreciate 3,000 new subscribers. What is that about? That's beautiful. I love you all. That is fantastic. This video is one of the ones I wanted to put together. I have one about E3 coming up, and I have another one that's baking that should come up hopefully in the next couple of weeks, just after Halloween. But if there are any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, please put them in the comments below. I appreciate everything. Thank you all for the kind comments. Whatever, negative comments still count as engagement. So thank you again for everything you've given me so far. I'll see you all in the next one. So what am I, a video game guy, doing speaking at the National Sports Forum? Well, I was talking about how I brought my mitt to a baseball game and caught a foul ball in the crowd, and the manager from the team came out on the field, and he said, you can play for one of our injured players. And then I played second base for that.
That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard.